Good afternoon. It is Shiz Who time. Shiz Who is brought to you by the great folks over at the Descent Agenda podcast, whose StreamYard account I make my great shows on. Go to look for the Descent Agenda podcast hosted by Melissa Lucasen and Cody Connor as well. Subscribe to them as well. Don't forget to also head on over to Farley R. Perkins Insurance Brokers Agency, the Brightway Insurance Agency. He'll help you with a lot of insurance needs, car insurance, home insurance. He's hooked us up with both. If you're looking for some great food tonight, look no further than Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express, both with the location in Virginia Beach and right here where I'm at in Portsmouth. So look as Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express up, followed by the ELG Sweet Boutique, also in Portsmouth, for great desserts. And if you're looking for someone to help you with credit fixes and some money issues and debt consolidation, then look to Positive Vibes Incorporated through Mr. Seiko Varner. His number is right there. He's also a great DJ if you need him to host some of your parties and events. He also created the Hampton Roads Green Book, which is a great application to find Black-owned businesses here in Hampton Roads. Don't forget the Black Swan Mindset, the Chronicles, a podcast and Substack created by Andrea Dixon Chesver, my awesome, lovely wife. So look them up promptly. Last but not least, the tax lady, Chandrika Blount, who helped me and the wife with our taxes this year. She did an excellent job. So look to that. She will help you out. Now, today we head over to Chesapeake. We're bringing on Ozan Duran. Now, Mr. Ozan is running for Chesapeake City Council. This is going to be a treat. So let me get ready to bring him on right now. Mr. Ozan, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing well, Conrad. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. It's always fun for me to do a great show and connect both with people running for office and community leaders. So can't wait to have you on and talk about politics. So speaking of politics, let's begin with your political mind, where it's at right now, but also what honed your community line of thinking and what in your experience pushed you basically to run for Chesapeake City Council.
Sure. So, affordability is one of the major topics that I'm running on, but I've always been a community-minded thinker. But I was pushed over the edge when my neighborhood school was slated to be closed with what I view to be like a lack of public disclosure. To this day, there's no signs posted around the school notifying the community of the process. Uh, I think we all have issues that we hold near and dear in our hearts, and affordability is my top one. I decided to run when I realized that the only way of making sure funding was there for priorities is having a say with the purse. And that comes from City Council. I'm unhappy that we have no clear positions of any other candidates on the issue of data centers. And I'm unhappy that candidates in general don't publish clear agendas or policies on their campaign websites. I think that it makes it harder for citizens to know who to support, as we can't hold them accountable to a promise that isn't written anywhere.
Awesome. So you're running on a platform that you definitely believe will be beneficial to the Chesapeake family. So let's begin with one of your first priorities. I think that'll be energy. How are families hurt or hurting for energy in Chesapeake? And how do you want to be on council and help fix it?
Sure. And is a big problem within the affordability, along with obvious grocery prices, gas, and housing. But energy in particular, there is one thing that we can do. It is somewhat of uh, something that we can counter Dominion Energy's monopoly in, and uh, the city has control over habitability policies. With one change, we can allow for homeowners and businesses to disconnect from the grid and actually choose to figure out how they want to produce their own power on site. Now, ideally, this would probably be solar or wind, which are available for us to install, and they would be having to meet all applicable state and federal laws and regulations. But that way, it seems like stuff in city council and at the state level is that we're not going to be able to ban data centers effectively. Uh, but this would allow for individual homeowners to not be affected by policies that are coming from the top down.
Now, I know from my own forays into following local politics, both here in Portsmouth and Virginia Beach, and what I hear from folks in Chesapeake, is that things beyond energy concern them. Chesapeake residents experience local taxation, I guess, in a very confusing manner, sometimes bothersome manner. Um, so, as someone who's a Chesapeake resident, what do you see is wrong for the typical taxpayer in Chesapeake? What are ideas that you have to fix the wrong parts?
Sure. So one of the things that I learned, a little bit about my background. I used to be a debt management specialist for the city of Norfolk in the finance department. So I know how to procure funds. I know how funding works at the city level. While I was looking for through the ACFR, which is the Annual Consolidated Financial Report, I saw that 10% of our city's personal property tax revenue is from late fees. So that's completely unacceptable. Late fees should not be making up a significant percentage of any breakdown of a revenue source. That's telling us that something is substantially going wrong in the way that we're actually uh, sending out these fees and collecting the taxes. So we need to figure out why 1 in 10 individuals are having a hard time paying things on time. There's only 30 days to pay it, and the postal office hasn't been always effective in ensuring that things get on time due to budget cuts on their end. So also, I think that auto pay not being necessarily available is a big issue and contributing factor. But separately, the Office of the Real Estate Tax Assessor ideally would have greater transparency into. I just see that there's a recording error potentially. But um,
Can you still see me?
yes, I can see you now. Sorry.
What I had noticed as I stepped away is that it looked like your screen froze a bit, but I was still able to hear you clear
Okay.
as well. So
Okay.
your answer is still good, but I think it looked like it froze, but it looks to me like it stopped freezing. So you can
Yeah.
go back to talking about taxes.
Sure. So, one of the things that I worked on was specifically looking at some kind of a tax relief program for primary homeowners. And what I mean by that is that if you own one home and you're residing in that, ideally there would be some portion of the tax bill that could be eliminated or subsidized. So, why is this necessary? Well, we know that Wall Street is buying up these houses in neighborhoods and then just either selling them for significant margins or only having them available for rent and keeping them on their portfolio. We do not want them paying the same tax rate as regular people are because they are driving up the cost of all of these properties in the area. So, by giving a tax cut to homeowners in particular, we would be able to raise revenue by increasing the tax rate. The, it may sound a little bit weird, but if you have a house that's worth $250,000 and the first $250,000 is tax free, then uh, you wouldn't be paying as much, but someone who has their second home would be paying taxes on that. Um, I I am aware that this is no longer the case. It's not possible under the Dillon rule, so this would have to go to Richmond, as there is no current way of actually implementing a homestead tax exemption or tax reduction.
This is just to be in comparison, a little anecdotal speak between us and our neighbors in Virginia Beach, because I follow a lot of their politics too. I used to be from Virginia Beach, ran for council in Virginia Beach. But right now they keep talking about the meals tax. So can you tell us, if you can, a little bit about the Chesapeake version of meals taxes, sales taxes, things that seem like it might help raise revenue, but it might hurt people who want to spend money in Chesapeake?
Sure. So they are, in the city's eyes, an incredible tax resource. People, by default, they don't want to be just bored in their homes. They go out and spend money. So when they spend money, we can collect that in the form of a sales tax or a meals tax. Unfortunately, this also has a chilling effect. We go to the store, we only see one posted price, and then the bill comes and you have the tax on top of that. When you increase taxes in that way, it ends up being regressive because a majority of people are not rich. They are affected by these taxes. So ideally, we have taxes that tax the people who actually have wealth rather than those who do not. So ideally are we only have real estate taxes primarily, unless the meals tax is specifically intended to fund meal oriented uh, investments, let's say, which they're not.
All right. All right. So, do you think it might be too high? Do you think it's just right? Do away with it entirely? I bet there are some people in Chesapeake who would want to get rid entirely of stuff like that. But where do you think the balance is?
So, when we talk about tax cuts, unfortunately, that is a revenue source that the city is currently relying on. In the case that we have a tax cut, ideally, we're making sure that we're not cutting from services that are absolutely necessary. I see that that happens quite typically in cities, and that's one reason why tax cuts are not necessarily the good ideas. Now, I don't believe in the meals tax personally, and in the case that there's a way of cutting the meals tax either in half or altogether, where it doesn't impact services such as our education system, which is woefully underfunded, or our public safety sector, which is also woefully underfunded, then we can talk about making that happen. I would gladly vote against the meals tax.
Cool, cool. And now I will admit there's a little bit more on taxes than I thought going in, but it came to my mind as I was talking, so I definitely wanted to
There's
bring that.
actually one more thing that I wanted to mention, and it's specifically regarding TIFs. So there's this thing called the tax increment financing. So if we live within a specific neighborhood and we feel that it's being underinvested in, we can, by voting for this, allow for a higher tax rate there. So South Norfolk did this. There is a South Norfolk TIF. So the idea behind this is that South Norfolk was lacking investments to make sure that they were adequately um, invested in. Their infrastructure is dilapidated. So they agreed to increase taxes. Now, what has happened since those investments? The TIF remains, that tax remains, but that money is now rolled into the general fund. So some of the most impoverished residents in all of Chesapeake are currently paying for improvements throughout Chesapeake, which happens to primarily be in, like, let's say, Greenbrier or the more established, wealthy areas. I don't find that to be acceptable at all. The TIF needs to remain in the in that area that is being taxed.
I understand. I follow. Now, if I also understand correctly, not only do you have enough interest in the schools of Chesapeake that you attend and speak to school board somewhat frequently, but you're also part of like a little consortium which is providing candidates both for council like yourself and the school board. So if you can't break down what that is, why that is, and then you can move on to what your goal would be regarding those specific seats.
Sure. So, one of the things when you're trying to advocate for a given position is ideally we are talking to the people that have power actively. So, I have been trying to communicate with the school board for quite a while now. I've been trying to communicate with the city council and making sure that, we're not having data centers in Chesapeake and we're not closing schools with inadequate explanations or studies thereof. So, you can only talk so much because we don't really have power just by talking. And this is something that a lot of my supporters, along with people that I've been talking to, feel. They don't feel heard or addressed by city council or the school board. You talk there, why? They feel like it's a waste of time. So this is where the um, our coalition comes in, right? So we have selected 3 school board members and 2 people for city council. So You don't have to necessarily listen to what our priorities or what we're trying to communicate to you. We can vote and just replace what you're saying if obviously our policies are popular enough. So that's kind of the motivation behind this.
I fully understand that because politics comes down to math when it comes to that stuff. So the amount of people who have the majority in council or the majority in the school board, and it is intriguing to me as someone who likes politics this much that there is not only just one or two like-minded individuals who would want change, they want to run for the change and organize around it in an independent way, but also in a teamwork way. So that is cool. And you said that there is a similar political goal with what they want to achieve, say on school board. Would you like to, because you're running for council, do you want to touch on what their board is, bring it into how you would help as a councilman?
Sure. So, one of the top priorities is making sure that Chesapeake Public Schools is funded adequately where they don't have to make, in my opinion, harebrained decisions. So, one of the things is that throughout all of Hampton Roads, we're having a very hard time attracting talent and making sure that we're retaining our teachers. We're not in the top four for educator pay in all of Hampton Roads. That needs to change. And you can't do that unless you increase funding. Another thing is that right now we're spending 10 times as much transporting children as we are contributing to our public transportation system. So we're spending $40 million dollars a year transporting students, but we only spend roughly $4 million dollars on public transportation. Supposedly, we have traffic issues in Chesapeake. Public transportation is the simplest solution to making sure that people are getting to where they need to go without causing infrastructure issues. Now, 70% of riders of HRT are going to work and they're paying for public transportation. So these are kind of like these no nonsense, simple ideas. Ideally, we would explore pilots that would somewhat incentivize CPS and HRT to potentially commingle bus routes. This is very common in Europe and other established countries that care about trying to reduce traffic and congestion. So um, that's kind of where we're about. We're also against the extensive use of devices in the classroom. So right now there is a crazy amount of hours every single week that the kids, very very young, are spending in front of their computers and Chromebooks. And that needs to change. It's not good for their attention span. We have many studies that are concluding that this is incredibly bad for their learning. And we see again throughout the world these trends towards eliminating digital devices from the classroom and moving towards paper.
And as you were mentioning that, I am reminded of, I think it was this week, I read an article that had, as most people do, they read like the title, maybe the first couple sentences, and don't go that far in. But it was in reference to, and the flashy title being that this generation is less intelligent than the previous one. And that's the first one that's happened like 100 or so years. And they wanted to cite that it is basically the attention span, as you just referenced. We're so focused on giving kids um, things to watch a lot of media on that that's effectively all they do. And it might not be the best media if you want to make a judgment on that, but that was what came to their mind is what may be causing this. And I wonder if you might have a similar mindset on that.
Sure. The past 2 years I just spent in the classroom teaching math at both the general education level and in upper education level, so like AP classes in high school. What I saw was a significant reduction in attention span capability throughout both on the lower end as well as the higher end of the achievement spectrum. I think that that is primarily attributable to short form content and a lack of regulation related activities. Separately, you know, these children, they don't really have places to go that are unstructured. Most of their time is either incredibly structured or unstructured in a way where it doesn't contribute to their development. They're never bored, and boredom, I think, is a key important thing that humans require to be creative. So I think that those are the primary reasons why we're seeing that attention span decrease, short form content, and a lack of respect for being bored.
Yeah, it's almost like we need to train ourselves to be able to tolerate being bored. So that might instigate creative thought, which might be lacking.
Yeah.
If we too easily just fix our mind to something that quickly pleases us. Now, how about Chesapeake capital improvement projects? It's a topic I believe you might have a lot of knowledge on. And if you can, what's going on with them? What are issues with them? How would you fix them if you have the right numbers on Chesapeake City Council?
Sure. So safety is a big issue in Chesapeake. It's one of my top concerns. And in the CIP, we actually have this very large spending project planned. So there's $150 million associated with this. And over the entire time span in which it would be paid, it would, right now as it stands, without cost ballooning, which it likely will cost $250 million. So this is a substantial amount of money. It's a new police training facility. So, meanwhile, we're not in the top three for pay in Hampton Roads for emergency personnel, and there's 41 positions that are short of our staffing target. And their workload just increased by 10% last year alone. So we can't afford to pay people better, but somehow we're going to be able to afford paying for a brand new building. I think that this is a similar problem that we're experiencing with the school board in trying to get this early childhood education program when they're closing Norfolk Island's primary to do it. I think that this is something that they can show that, hey, we built that. And they get their name on this placard in those buildings when they build that. I think that that is a huge motivating factor for city council as is. And I don't think that when you say, "Hey, look, I managed to secure a pay raise for my workers," that doesn't resonate. It's not something that you get to show for, right? So like Amanda Newens, she just recently is touting, "Hey, well, we now have a registry for people that abuse their dogs." That That's an amazing goal, but, like, why wasn't that already a thing? I don't give credit for something that should have already been the case. That's not impressive. That's just, why are we bragging about meeting the minimum standard? That doesn't make any sense to me. So that's just one project. There's many places in Chesapeake that have been flooding for decades now. I don't think that that's acceptable. I think that if it really comes to it, maybe we need a TIF. I don't think we need a TIF. I think we need to be cutting back on the newest projects in order to make sure that communities that haven't had these needs be met for decades, they need to be addressed. So flooding in South Norfolk and Pewsville, those are incredibly important projects. We need to make sure that our communities are safe, primarily from flooding first. That's not acceptable. So that's kind of what I had in mind when talking about CIP.
Now, as someone who from time to time likes to toot his own horn, when I ran most recently for city council in Virginia Beach, one of the things that was right at the top of the cards I was giving out was that massive transportation stuff needs to be changed, and the infrastructure regarding our transportation is a bit antiquated, to say the least. And I provided as an example rapid bus transit. So, do you also have a similar mindset in regards to fixing transportation issues in Chesapeake? And you can, another thing that came to mind is that they're also trying to replace a lot of their older schools. And those are things that are with borderline sticker shock prices in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And I wonder if that's going to be a similar problem that you would see in Chesapeake.
Yeah. So we are the chickens or the birds have come to roost, unfortunately. So when we have lower tax rates, that disproportionately assists the rich rather than the poor. So when we talk about real estate tax assessments, homes on the lower end of the valuation spectrum, they experience greater gains in their value than um the more expensive homes. So when we have lower tax rates, the lower end homes proportionately actually experience a disproportionate gain, and the more expensive houses do not. And that is one reason why lower taxes are incredibly popular with the richer you are, essentially. Um, so what does that mean for transportation? Well, I talked about transportation when it related to my position with the coalition, but I am for BRT. I'm currently in talks with the Tidewater Transit Authority, and they are an advocacy organization specifically surrounding public transportation and the need for it. And I think that it's not acceptable that we're only funding our public transportation $3.8 million a year. Um, but could you remind me what was the specific question again? Because I think that I've gone on a little bit of a tangent all
My
around.
question was also a bit of a tangent based on the former question on capital improvement projects, simply because as you were talking, I remembered that the Princess Anne High School is what came to mind in Virginia
Mhm,
Beach. That is something, it's the oldest one, and they want to replace it like they did Kellam High School in Virginia Beach.
mhm.
But that was like 100 to $200 million to replace Kellam, and inflation is just going to make it that much more high to do Princess Anne.
Yep.
And these are things that you're probably just as liable to have high schools that are a
I-
little older in Chesapeake, and they're going to need to be replaced, modernized. And
yeah.
just because it's efficient and modernized doesn't mean it's going to be not subject to incredibly high prices. And that would actually make people not want to vote for that because they're scared of the taxes that would come from that. So
Yeah.
is
I've
that
got it.
that's what came from my mind? So that, yeah, that's
So on this topic, we have a lot of infrastructure that's dilapidated. The way that we need to approach this is from a cost savings and systems analysis perspective. So, one of the things that the city significantly lacks is the ability to conduct any of these repairs or constructions on its own. That means that if a contractor comes and says, "This is the bill," the city essentially, if they want to get this project done, they accept whatever price is the lowest, and you end up with the lowest quality there. There is no provision right now that the city just says, whoa, 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 what do you mean? That's way too expensive. There's no way that I'm going to allow you our tax dollars to be spent in that way. We don't have any capabilities for having our own concrete plants. We don't do our own asphalt, really. We don't build our own buildings. We don't do our own plumbing. And on the topic of plumbing, there is this LCRR, which is the Lead and Copper Rule Revision. The federal government required that all municipalities take an inventory of all of the pipes throughout the entire city. These are pipes that deliver water to our homes. They were supposed to make a catalog of which pipes are made of lead and which ones are made of galvanized steel. This is incredibly important because, as you may know, in Flint, Michigan, we had a major lead poisoning issue. Now, I'm not stating that currently our water is being contaminated by lead, but the city has not published data saying what type of line is currently providing water as outlined in the federal government requirements. We also currently don't have any method of making our own pipes. So this is going to be a phenomenally expensive project if Chesapeake ever decides to undergo this, which they're required to do. Um, and we have a plastics supplier, Cateau and Nati, which is right in South Norfolk. They import plastic pellets. So we already have a local supplier of plastic. All we need is an extrusion facility, and then we can provide plastic pipes to transport the water in a safe and secure manner to all of Hampton Roads. So we would be able to potentially build that plant and then sell those pipes to all of Hampton Roads. So we have a captive audience. Everyone needs to replace these pipes. So it'd be future thinking to actually internalize this known cost that is going to come to us in the future.
And I want to bring that into recent things you just mentioned that it could be brought to Chesapeake to build.
Mhm.
And it's forward thinking, but also kind of long term thinking in its forwardness. It's not like you have to have it immediately. And this comes back to the topic of growth. What would be good growth? What's bad growth to you as a Chesapeake resident? Because I know through going through Chesapeake a lot that it's highly residential. It's not overly urban. It's not devoid of development entirely, but it's not like a city. So, what would make development bad in your eye? And do you wish to be creatively conscious of the issues when voting on said developments as a council person?
Yes. So my views on development are incredibly complicated. I do have extensive detail on my website available because of how complicated development is. But one of the main rubrics that I would have is if something requires rezoning from residential to commercial, commercial to industrial, or uh, reclassifying industrial properties inside the classification, or heaven forbid, agricultural to other uses. I absolutely disagree with any of those sentiments. It needs to be. I think that we have enough land where we've already decided that it can be used in this way. We need to be more thoughtful about how we're utilizing this land, and this will incentivize existing property owners to make use of their land. We have a huge amount of just derelict properties that are gathering dust. They have a building on it. There's no activity there. It's not contributing to the tax base. Uh, I know the reasons why, but they're not being rented by people, and it's just causing stagnation within the city. I think that we should be prioritizing maybe turning some of these old Kmart's into uh, better businesses.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a few places. Portsmouth's got one right here. There's a Crunch Fitness that used to be something. I lived near the Kempsville area, Virginia Beach, so I went to Cinema Cafe a lot at the Kemps River location. That was a Farm Fresh,
Mhm.
and that used to be a Kmart, and now it's a different type of market. And I believe a Planet Fitness is where the Kmart is at, and it's like they replaced Big Box with another version of Big Box because they think that that's the only type of development that could go
Yeah.
there.
So regarding big box stores, they do not provide as many jobs per square foot of real estate as smaller businesses do. Prioritization of big boxes, it sounds really good because you get to say this business worth X million dollars or billion dollars across the U.S. We managed to attract them here. Well, that money is not going to stay in the community. That means that wherever there are profits, whenever there's profits from this business, they're leaving. They are leaving this area. I can't think of a worse investment in Chesapeake than incentivizing a big box store coming here and then exfiltrating Chesapeake dollars. That sounds like a terrible investment. And then separately, when they go out of business, that leaves this huge footprint. And we can see that it's so difficult to fill these. And then it also sticks us with the bill of, heaven forbid, trying to demolish some of these things. You're seeing this with the MacArthur Mall. How much money is it supposed to demolish? And then they're going to spend more money trying to build it out?
Yep.
That is insane. Insane. It's very poor planning.
And I
Uh,
imagine similar stuff might be for Chesapeake Square or a Greenbrier down the line.
Yep, for sure. Ideally, we figure out ways of utilizing those without demolishing them. They are incredible, very expansive indoor areas that by default lend themselves to shade.
Mhm.
Uh, we should potentially, as a bridge, maybe install solar panels on them because right now they're just gathering dust. They're absolutely useless. If we can figure out some way for the city to potentially be incentivized to have bridge projects where, hey, we don't know and we don't have enough money to do something with this, just throw up something on it and make use of it. Maybe reduce rental rates within there. Say, hey, look, there isn't going to be AC in here, you know, but figure out if you want incredibly subsidized rental rates, this is a place that you could be. And who knows? Heaven forbid, maybe that rental rate would actually justify reinvesting and keeping that place open. I don't know. That sounds like the worst idea I could think of.
And man, I can tell you about some other ones too here in Portsmouth with that casino, which is still very flashily. A lot of people go to that, but the money that is generated from it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
stay in the city of Portsmouth, as you mentioned. That stuff is definitely a capital flight risk.
Yeah.
And I imagine if the same thing happened in Chesapeake, the same money would be leaving Chesapeake. And I wonder if other forms of heavily negative thought development could possibly afflict Chesapeake down the line. I naturally am thinking of one of the big things that people in Chesapeake and other cities in the state and nationwide are even thinking of, and that's, as you mentioned a few times already, data centers. And data centers, I've heard that they may or may not come to Chesapeake, and Chesapeake citizens are on it, and that's why I want to share this video real quick that I have from YouTube, which highlights WTKR. And it was about a Chesapeake protester rally, I think about 3 weeks ago. And let's take a listen real quick.
I'm Gabrielle Harmon in Chesapeake, where protesters against data centers are making their voices heard.
71% of Americans are not in favor of more data centers. And so we're begging the politicians to listen to us and not the big money.
More than 50 locations across the country participated in the National Day of Protest against data centers, and those with the Save the Dismal gathered and hiked to have their voices heard.
That could do tremendous damage to the swamp through pollution and hurt the wildlife and affect the sensitive ecosystem as well.
As we've previously reported, a proposal to build a data center near a Great Bridge neighborhood failed last year. City council members denied it just last month, and now they're planning on creating guidelines for where data centers can and cannot go. Some community members previously have said it's just a matter of time, but want it done right.
I have no doubt we will have a data center in Chesapeake. I don't oppose data centers in general. I think they serve a purpose, but we got to put them where they belong, where they don't negatively impact residents.
We can beat this. We have the people on our side. And what the politicians need to especially remember is data centers don't vote, people do. And we have an election coming up in November, and that could be very telling on this matter.
Gabrielle Harmon, WTKR News 3.
And I definitely also want to shout out great community activist Jeff Staples over there in Chesapeake as well. So I noticed he was wearing a Save the Dismal shirt too. So if you want to respond to that, your thoughts on them, the threat to Chesapeake could be positive, could be negative, and especially bringing the environmental aspect too on data centers.
Sure. So the most recent planning commission meeting, I spoke out against data centers. I proposed significant changes to the language that would impose significant barriers to data centers being built. I am fundamentally opposed to data centers in Chesapeake. I do not think that they do not respect our values as Chesapeake residents. I don't think that we should have them. Jeff, he is a close associate of mine. I can't say friend yet because I've only met him, I want to say 2 or 3 months ago. But we are very closely aligned on all issues. I've also spoken out at pretty much every single city council meeting after that planning commission meeting against data centers. There still remains numerous issues. I don't know if you've looked at the most recent proposal, but city council, it's not city council, the planning director themselves have actively stripped away language that the planning commission in their expertise put in there. The city stripped protections of the people. I think that that's unacceptable. The city should be there to bat on behalf of the citizens, not businesses. They significantly reduced the guidelines for setbacks that the Planning Commission put there. They increased the allowable noise from 55 to 60 decibels to 68 at night and 72 during the day, mind you, 72 decibels on your porch sounds like people arguing very loudly. That is how loud that is. And that would be 24/7 an allowable noise. I don't think that the city is acting in the best interest of the people. I am fully against the data centers. And then separately, I have it on good authority that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have actively been telling their candidates to not speak at both the school board and the city council meetings. I think that that is terrible. I'm the only person that's running for city council that has spoken at every recent school board meeting and city council meeting. I think that sounds about why.
In fact, to be honest, I would encourage you to keep doing that.
Absolutely.
This is where people get to see the disconnect between the people politics aspect and the regimented mechanistic establishment politics, which tries to distance that by making it to be a public image type thing, where it's like it's just trying to curate an image, and like you're distancing yourself from the community that way. You actually need to reverse that. You need to be enveloped in the community a lot more so. And that's why I would encourage you to actually keep going with speaking to the board, speaking to the council as much as you can.
I absolutely plan on keeping it up, and I also plan on continuing my presence at the protests against data centers.
Precisely. I actually would encourage more people who not only are running, but people who have run and succeeded to also be at protests too, because that's where the people are. You can't be seen as so far away from the people that you only care about checking a yes or checking a no vote every Tuesday night or Wednesday night or every other Tuesday or Wednesday night, depending on whatever city you're in, does it for the constituency. And I also want to bring up a topic regarding the constituency and how it's represented. This was something that was very important to me when I was running 6 years ago in Virginia Beach, because at the time that was a weird hybrid election mix of districts where you had to live in the district to run for the district, but the entire city at large could vote for it. And that stuff got thrown out as unconstitutional a few years ago, hence why they created the 10-1 system, which still exists in Virginia Beach. And in 2024 was the last time I went to a Chesapeake City forum, and they did mention at that forum the topic of district voting versus at-large voting. And I remember that there were some establishment Chesapeake people who were not very big on the idea of district voting. They wanted to keep the at-large going because they like the idea of representing all the people of Chesapeake. And I noticed from your website, which if you don't mind me getting ready to share that one here,
Sure.
Because I want people to see your website here, but you have a breakdown of a lot of different communities in Chesapeake. Right here, the community
and community by community issues that they have.
Exactly. So I appreciate that, especially as you know, going into an at-large type of representation. In fact, let me hit the add to screen part so people can see it. You break down all the neighborhoods, yes. What they need, yes. So that's good for all of the citizens of Chesapeake to have someone who's knowledgeable of all that. But this might come back to an opinion on your sake. Do you think you might have a sharper voice from your neighborhood, your community, if you represented specific district in Chesapeake in council, or would you want to keep it as the at-large system?
Sure. So when you have a district system, that is not preventing you from actively trying to help someone in another area. What it does is it increases the accountability that every individual candidate has to where they were elected from. Right now, if you're in South Norfolk, there is no way of holding any individual member personally accountable for lack of investment in your community. If you're in Indian River, there is no individual candidate that you can hold individually accountable. So it's, if you have enough money, which the bigger parties do, you can have many, many people on foot across all of Chesapeake. And basically, the strategy is spray and pray, right? You try and spread as wide as possible so your message is incredibly diluted, right? Now, one thing that I've done that I don't feel that other council members have done is put my understanding of what of the individual problems each of the community has on their page and what I'm planning on doing for them, right? If anyone feels that I have not adequately represented an issue or policy that their community is facing, I welcome them to reach out because, again, my goal is to hear, listen first, understand the problem, and then ideally try and figure out a solution for them. I intend to have everyone's problems addressed in a timely manner. That's my goal.
Excellent. Now, I sort of want to generalize all of this into its most simple form. Let's picture that you're canvassing at a neighborhood in Chesapeake come this fall, and you meet someone at their door that is interested in voting, but they don't yet know who to vote for and why. So let's hear it. What would be your pitch to the Chesapeake voter?
Sure. My goal as a candidate is to not just adequately or to minimum standards represent everyone in Chesapeake. I want to go above and beyond and make sure that everyone feels that they have an active voice in the process. So if someone is looking for someone to make them feel heard and represented, I am the person to be voting for. Uh, I separately would like to add that I am the person that's going out there and specifically talking to these issues and making all of my positions known ahead of time. If you have any questions about any of my positions, I'm an open book. Either you can go on my website and find out about that, or you can contact me directly, and that will be something that I add to the website so that other people that have the questions that you have also can be answered. So that's in essence what I have. And you also wouldn't be contributing to the two-party system that it has incredible problems right now. I don't feel adequately represented by either the Republican or Democratic Party, which is why I haven't sought out endorsement from any of the parties.
And I very much appreciate and endorse that message too. As someone who I have defined political positions that are like some would say very left of center these days, but that doesn't mean that I'm so associated to the Democrat Party because there's an independent way that I guess might move the things that matter more than it seems like the party would because they only care about either blue no matter who or better red than any other thing on the Republican side. I couldn't make it rhyme just that quickly, but it just seems like they're so worried about beating the Dems or beating the Republicans that they're not serving the people of Chesapeake in a way that helps the city of Chesapeake. So I encourage you not only to stay in this race and to go to city council meetings every day until you're actually sworn in as a city council member, but also the board meetings too. I also encourage you, if you do become the next great elected city council person in Chesapeake, to still go to school board meetings because that would be cool to see a sitting city council person speak to the board members as they are there. I also want to bring up again the fact that DuranForChesapeake.com is the name of the website. I have it up here on the screen too, but I'm glad I had you on. We could discuss these things that matter to Chesapeake. I encourage the viewers to not only go to the website, but to listen to the words that are said today, to like what you see, encourage more input about Ozan Duran, and then just have fun when they go to the voting blocks because we should all have fun with that. And I encourage you to have a great afternoon, good sir, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. And just for anybody that wants to contact me, you can contact me directly at my personal email, ozanmertduran or my personal cell phone, which is 703-225-9370. I'm also the only candidate that will give you literally my personal contact info. So hopefully that is information for you.
And viewers, if you decide to take him up on that with the phone number, don't spam him. Only ask the good stuff.
I will do my best to try and respond to everybody that seeks representation in this process.
Perfect. And again, thank you for coming on Shez Who today. Definitely look to hear more from you in the future. You have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much, Conrad. Great to be here.
Thank you. And this has been another great episode of Shez Who. You guys keep watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting to this channel. Make sure it grows. That way we keep giving you the best in politics here. You have a great one too.
Thank you.